Imagine your favorite picture that you have, whether it be on a mantle or hanging on your wall. Now imagine a world without that picture or any picture at all. Fortunately, we don't need to live in a world like this thanks to the digital camera. The camera used to be a big box with a hole in it, but thanks to Steve Sasson, it has evolved to much greater. We are now able to take imagery of the world that can be shared as memories later on in life. Good afternoon. My name is Hannah Chuckas, and my exhibition topic is the digital camera. The idea of the camera has been around for a long time. The first camera was made in 1816 by a man named Nicephore Niepce. He used a big box and put a lens on the end of it. He used a silver chloride band, which darkened and lightened depending on the amount of exposure to light. When the picture came out, it was because there was different values shown because of the exposure of the light. This process did not work well because the more exposure to light, the darker the image would be, and you couldn't see the image as well. In 1975, a man named Steve Sasson created the first digital camera. He decided to improve the camera that required paper and film. He wanted a camera that could have pictures that were stored digitally and could be sent to people around the world in seconds. So one day, Sasson set out a plan to figure out how this could be done. There were many experiments before the first real digital camera came about. The first digital camera weighed 8 pounds, and when Steve Sasson worked on it, he worked at Eastman Kodak. Kodak decided that they wanted to create a patent for this so that people wouldn't steal their idea. So they created a patent, and in 2007, they started to lose money because they sold their patent to other companies, and as a result, they fell apart. These companies advanced their camera quicker than Kodak, which drove Kodak into bankruptcy in 2012. Older cameras used a process called photochemistry in film to produce the image. A photon, or a particle representing an amount of light or other electromagnetic light, is what caused the chemical change to the detectors in the camera. The film soaked up the light energy, which caused a chemical change to the silver metal in the film when you took the picture. A silver bromide, which is a compound of thiosulfate and real ion, is the chemical that was used in the film. Bromide has a high sensitivity to light and absorbs all of the light when the picture is taken. The thiosulfate takes away the amount of silver bromide that was exposed to the light to make different shades of the picture. The more light that is absorbed means the more silver bromide that is going to get taken away from the thiosulfate, which caused a lighter section of the picture. When they were first creating the camera, they wanted to make sure that it would be portable. The first digital camera had a lens and a portable digital cassette that was used for recording the images. It also had batteries to keep the camera working for a longer period of time. It also had a CCD, or a charge-coupled device, and an AD converter. An AD converter is a device that converts all analog signals into digital signals. And a CCD is a device that senses the image light rays and converts them into electrons. Cameras have many purposes. The digital camera was first created to upgrade the technology of cameras so people could capture imagery that could be saved as memories digitally as opposed to film. It made the photos more accessible and very easy to store safely. The photographer would also be able to print as many copies of the photo as they wish and share the picture as many times as they want. Lots of companies still produce the digital camera today. Some of those companies include Canon, Nikon, Fujifilm, Sony, and Panasonic. Each of these companies wanted to outshine the others, so they started to create their own versions of the camera. They each tried to make their cameras better than the competing brand so that more people would buy their product. Companies sought to improve the quality with higher resolution like 4K, which is the clearest quality a camera can have. Other brands have been trying to bring back older cameras where the picture prints out right in that moment. In addition, digital cameras have also been started to use for drones, underwater, and in the sky. All of these companies have advanced the camera in their own different and unique ways. There is a very in-depth process for how the camera works. First, waves called electromagnetic waves help function the cameras. Electromagnetic waves are created when a changing magnetic field influences a changing electric field, and vice versa. Electromagnetic waves do not need a medium or object to travel through. They can travel in solid materials, air, and even the vacuum of space. When the button is pressed on a camera to take the picture, the aperture, or the opening in the camera lens, opens to allow the light to enter. Then the mirror flips up and the shutter opens so that the light waves can reach the image sensor. There is no film in a digital camera. Instead, there is a CCD and SMMS, which are the image sensors that records the light waves and changes them into electric signals. Devices transform the analog signals from the light waves into a digital coding signal. Devices make it so that every pixel is recorded as a binary code. A pixel is a little area on a screen consisting of a specific number and color. Binary code is a system of numbers consisting of only zeros and ones used to write data for a computer processor. When the image is shown on the screen, the digital signals all change back into analog signals so that you can see the picture. There are many materials that the camera is made out of. They are mostly made out of aluminum, steel, and plastic. Materials help to protect all of the valuable technology deep inside of the camera. The lens is made out of glass, so it is able to clearly capture an image and enclose the camera. The CCD is made out of silicone, which is a non-metal chemical element. Silicone is used because it allows the circuit boards to function better, and the material can bend and give more functions and movement to the inside of the camera. A polycarbonate compound and 10 to 20% glass fiber make up the camera cover. This material is used because it is durable, lightweight, and shock resistant. It can also tolerate temperature changes and humidity very well. My creative demonstrates how light waves can enter the camera. First, the light waves enter through the lens, and then on the inside of the camera, you can see that there is an image sensor, a shutter, and a mirror. So the mirror first flips up to allow the light waves to come through. And the aperture is right here, and there's different sizes of the aperture to allow a specific amount of light to come through. Once the mirror flips up, the shutter opens and closes super fast to allow light to come through. And then the light waves reach the sensor, and it then gets transformed into the digital signals and the waves and gets shown on the screen on the back. All of these buttons here control the settings of the camera and how everything works and how the pictures show up on the screen. The viewfinder on the camera is made out of optical glass, plastic, or glass and plastic combinations. Optical glass is a special kind of glass that is used for lenses that is able to bend the light in a specific way to make things appear a little bit different. It uses reticles, which are a series of lines or fibers in an eyepiece in an optical device to form a frame of the picture. Some viewfinders use a prism to bend the light from the human eye to make a more accurate view of the picture. Most advanced cameras are made with LED screens that show any information regarding how the camera operates. These are used because they use up less energy than liquid crystal display screens do. They can also improve the refresh time of the screen because the electrical current moves more smoothly and faster. The lens of the camera is a very important piece of the camera because it is where the light first enters the camera and the photo process starts. The lens can change in many details, including the focal length, which is the distance between the center of the lens or curved part of the mirror and its focus. The focal length is what controls how much of the landscape is seen. It determines how wide the lens in photo is. The camera is not what takes the picture, the lens does, which is stated by my primary source, who also said that the lens is what makes the picture quality so good. The lens is where the light rays first go into the camera at first and when the whole process starts. Without a good lens, the picture quality would not be as good. The more expensive the lens is, the better the pictures will be. My primary source is Rob Penner. He is a digital photographer at Beacon's Fine Art Printing in New York. He has over 35 years of experience in photography. He helped me understand that the lens is the most important piece to the camera. The aperture in the camera impacts the amount of exposure to light by changing the size of the lens opening. It controls the amount of light that reaches the sensor to the image. Today's cameras usually have a small aperture range, which means that there would be less light that is allowed to go in. Other cameras have bigger aperture ranges, which allow more of a landscaped view, and you can see more objects. The aperture range in a camera can be found by looking on the side of the lens. This graph shows how when the focal length increases, the relative light gathering ability, which is how much light can enter the camera, actually decreases because the opening is getting a lot smaller, so there's less light being allowed in. Where the focal length decreases, the relative light gathering ability increases because there's more light being able to enter the camera. The shutters in the camera open and close to allow light to come through. A coding system has to be exact to work with other operations of the camera. The shutter is different depending on the brand. When the shutter button is clicked to take the picture, everything freezes for a second to record the light reflected from the object in the camera's view. The light rays the camera just recorded change into a digital signal on a memory card, which show up as many little pixels on the photo. There have been many improvements to older cameras, including adding sensors. The first Kodak camera, there were about 6 circuit boards and a sensor that made the images black and white. Once the image was shot, they went from the sensor camera to the memory in about 50 milliseconds, where it then took 23 seconds to record the image to the tape. Now, once the light rays reach the sensor, your image shows up on your screen in only about 2 seconds. Screens on a digital camera are a lot different than many other screens, like the TV screen. On a TV screen, there are millions of colored dots or areas of illumination when you look very closely. These are called pixels, and this is what makes up the image. They turn on and off when needed to display the correct image. This process is different in a digital camera. The light from the picture zooms into the camera lens. Once the image reaches the sensor chip, it splits up into 1,000,000 pixels. The sensor holds each color and brightness of each pixel as a number. A photograph is basically a group of numbers describing the pixels in details. The more pixels on a camera, the better the resolution of the photo is going to be. This is because there are more colors to create a more clear image. This is also why 4K cameras are a lot better than 720 pixel cameras, because there are 4,000 pixels per square inch in a 4K camera opposed to 720 pixels in a 720 pixel camera. The memory card in the camera is what all the pictures are stored on. The memory cards are built into the camera so that the images have a place to go. Most people use an SD card because they are smaller and easier to carry and can hold a lot of memory. The more memory on a card, the more pictures you are going to be able to hold. This is why on a 64 gigabyte card, you are able to hold a lot more photos than you would with a 16 gigabyte card. When designing a camera, there are many steps. The designer first has to plan out why the consumer needs the products to make it suitable for the people's needs. After, a designer uses a computer-aided design program, or CAD programs, to decide the camera on the computer. The designer selects what essentials to the camera they need, and then the accessories. Once this is all done, they begin to actually make the camera by molding the pieces and wiring the circuit boards. Lastly, the camera gets tested and gets shipped to different facilities and stores and companies, which then sell it to people every day. With a digital camera, there are many advantages and also many disadvantages. Some advantages are that a digital camera has a very high resolution, so photographers are able to print very clear images. With high resolution, that implies that there are a lot of pixels per inch, so you can have very high quality pictures and print the very high quality pictures at very large rates. They were also able to print smaller photos with the same high definition by connecting the images to a computer and printing them from there. The photos in the camera do not take up a lot of storage, as opposed to film cameras, which take up a lot of storage on the film memory card, which means that it will be a lot less expensive with a digital camera because you are only taking photos, and you won't need to buy as many memory cards. The photos can also be viewed right after the picture is taken, and this can be edited very easily on the camera with built-in filters or in an editing software on a computer. Some disadvantages to the digital camera are that the material used to make the cover of the camera is not resistant to chemicals. meaning that if the camera is exposed to chemicals, it will most likely corrode. This is very unlikely, but it can still happen. Also, the internal parts of the camera must fit perfectly, so the camera cover has to be molded very precisely. If it is not, the cover will not provide as much support and protection to the sensitive insides of the camera, as they are very fragile and can easily be damaged. This is why sometimes if the camera drops, it can be unusable. And there are also very few waterproof cameras, so if it gets dropped in the water, it will most likely be broken and you will not be able to use it. Finally, digital cameras can cost a lot of money. They can add up really fast once you buy all of the materials and essentials that you need for the camera. Professional cameras average about $3,000 without buying the extra accessories like the lenses. Adding the lenses could bring your cost up to $5,000. There is a very large future to the digital camera. A designer named Funamizu came up with a new idea for a camera that will be the size of a coin. This camera can be attached anywhere, and the photos would wirelessly go to a nearby device. This camera would solve the problem of carrying a big bulky camera around. Another thing that they want to add in the future is adding smell to a photograph. The photographer would command the camera to record a smell that would be put into the photograph. This would mean that when you look at the photo again, you would be able to smell the exact smell that there was when you first took the photo initially. In the future, companies have been trying to make and advance mirrorless cameras. This would mean that the autofocus feature would be a lot better, and there would be more processing power and battery life. And there would also be more features. There would also be a lot smaller of a camera and a lot easier to hold. As you can see, the camera is, and will be an important piece to society for capturing memories and helping people. Cameras help to keep an image document, which can be very helpful in life. Without cameras, we would not be able to hold memories with friends and families in photos and in picture frames as easily. We would also not be able to capture special moments throughout history. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I will now take any questions from the audience.
What is the cassette tape? Can you explain the first one?
Well, it's more like the film. So basically, like when you take the picture, it went onto film in older cameras instead of just like appearing on a screen. Tim?
How does the camera take the smell from where the picture is taken?
So they don't know exactly how that's going to happen yet, but it's more just like an idea that they want to be able to do that, so you can put yourself in a more virtual world and like imagine like where you took the picture first. Wendy?
So maybe between a regular camera and the digital camera?
The digital camera makes it so that when you take the picture, it appears on a screen and like can transfer over to like computers and stuff like that. Whereas the regular camera, it was just like with film and stuff, so it just kind of printed out right from the camera in that moment. Jim?
For the photograph thing, is that like a smoking thing?
What?
Is it like a smoke thing that you smell?
For the smelling photograph, again, they don't really know how it's going to happen, but it's most likely just going to like release a little bit of a scent that would come out of the camera in that moment. Yes, ma'am?
Why do photographers carry around so many different lenses?
Because they want to get more accurate like views of like the images and stuff, and they want to make sure they have the right lens, because some lenses have a smaller aperture range and they want to be more focused on a specific thing, whereas some have more landscape views, so it really just depends on like what they're trying to shoot. Serena?
Do you know what waterproof cameras are made out of, which makes them waterproof?
I do not know the answer to that, but it's more just like everything is more enclosed so that there's no water that gets seeped into the internal parts of the camera.
How do the materials change over time?
Well, when they first were made, it was made out of box or wood and a lens, and now they're made out of like aluminum and steel and plastic.
Who's talking about that?